Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. I am not your host, Habitual Linecrosser. Joining me today on this wonderful Cappy Army fucking webpage, YouTube channel, is, of course, your host, Chris Cappy. And then we have Ryan Mcbeth, who is fresh from his return trip of CIA informantism down in Bolivia. I don't even know where Bolivia is, but it was near Belize, which is unbelievable. No? Okay, all right, I'm done.
For people who don't know, who might not be familiar with your guys' work, could we start with Ethan? Do you want to tell me a little bit about...
So my name is Ethan, and on the internet I go by Habitual Linecrosser. I do geopolitical humor. I do it's kind of sketch comedy. I mostly am known for creating the F-22, which is known as the Kid. I guess that's just his nickname now. The one that, would you intercept me? I'd intercept me. And then, of course, everybody loves Grandpa Buff. And, I started creating these characters, and as I continued, they have become a bit of a household name to people. And it's really interesting to see how far it's gone. So that's what I'm known for.
Ryan?
My name is Ryan Mcbeth. I'm a software engineer, and actually I have about 4 jobs. I do YouTube full-time, where I mainly talk about intelligence topics. I work for a Newsmax as a intelligence commentator. I work for Velocity, which is a private intelligence company. We help the government find bad guys. And I think the 4th thing I do is Texas Aero Med Lab, where I'm their director of integration for software, which is a company that uses AI-powered drones to deliver whole blood to wounded soldiers on the battlefield without GPS.
And I'm Chris Cappy, your average infantryman from Task and Purpose. You guys watch the YouTube channel. So you were saying that you do these voices. You also do them for geopolitics too, right? I love that.
I have... Honestly, it's been really an uphill battle because everyone wants to see their country, and I have a ton of international fans. The Polish really love me because I've created this, I don't know if I call it a stigma, but that Poland is like little European Texas. And the more I learn about Poland the more it fulfills that role, because Poland is just armed to the teeth and ready for a fight. I mean, they were the beginning of the last 2 world wars, so I hope we don't got another one coming, but I don't know if that's accurate. But I've had to learn Russian accent, Greek accent, Israeli. I'm still struggling with the Israeli. It's like a weird French.
It's like an up and down, like Ryan Havel Shali, you don't understand. If you can just Havel Shali, just like you're hacking up some phlegm.
Every time I do accents sometimes too. And the one thing when I cover like China stuff, I'm always like, this is the one thing I'm not going to do an accent for.
So here's the thing. I was like that too when I first started out. I didn't want to do like Chinese accent, because like in America we're taught that any minority accent is considered racist, right? Spoiler alert, if you go to Europe, way more racist than the United States, at least in my experience. But somebody commented, and this was 6-8 months ago, and they're like, so you only do accents for white countries, isn't that a little racist? And I was like, you know what? You're right.
Yeah. So you do them now?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, I feel like that opens the door, and now maybe it would be okay if I did it.
I think, although I kind of lucked out because I'm just a faceless country, well, like I just have eyes and mouth over a map, but that might be my luck out. But yeah, when they said that it was racist to not do it, I was like, you know what? You're right.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
It's messed up. Yeah. No. When you guys were soldiers and you deployed. I don't know if you were like me, but I was 19 and I had almost zero idea about the geopolitics of it. I had very little interest in like why we were there. I just kind of wanted to serve and do my part. Mm-hmm. But so were you always interested in that aspect of it, like the foreign relations, the foreign affairs of it?
So this is a bit of a long story, but the reason I got into content creation is it was after my last deployment, and I had come home, and my now ex-wife was not there. Nothing against her. I wish her the best in her future endeavors. We just grew apart. We'll leave it at that. And I remember getting off the plane, and all my buddies, they like ran to their families after we were dismissed, and I had nobody there, and that hurt. That hurt a lot. So around that time, I made my first funny video, and I did it kind of selfishly. I wanted people to tell me I was great and whatever. And then after a while, I realized what I was doing is I was trying to help people not feel the way I did when I stepped off that plane. So that's where I knew I wanted to create content, but I had no idea what my niche was. And I remember I was making like military skit comedy, and I've done a whole bunch of different styles of videos and informative content because I do like educating people about stuff. And then I remember I was watching the news one day, and I mean, we all grew up. I don't know how old you are, Chris, but I know me and Ryan grew up in like the heyday of satirical news comedy, which was Jay Leno. Like he was the king of satirical news comedy.
And Jay Leno and oh my God,
Jon Stewart.
Yeah, Jon Stewart, Daily Show. Yeah.
Yeah, I worked there.
Yeah.
You worked at the Daily Show?
Yeah, not like as a legitimate work. I started as an intern, and then I was a production assistant. So I did all the behind the scenes stuff.
Okay.
I worked there for like 2 years, the end of Jon Stewart's run, right when he was leaving.
Okay.
And in the beginning of Trevor Noah.
Okay. And so...
But yeah, so you, that like kind of...
Yeah, I was watching the news one day, and I was like... it just kind of clicked. I was like, I can make fun of this. I can make fun of this. I can make fun of this. And I was like, you know what? We're just going to try it. And at that point in time, the filter on TikTok was real big with just the eyes and mouth over different countries, like talking trash. And I was like, I can deliver these jokes way better. I can do accents. I can create characters. Let's just go for it. And I did it. And it exploded. I think at that point in time, I had like 400,000 followers on TikTok, which is substantial. Don't get me wrong. But within 3 or 4 months, I was already at 1 million. And I was like, that's nuts how fast it can explode. And then I switched over to YouTube, and now I'm at 650 almost thousand subscribers on YouTube. And it's wild. It's been a wild ride. So
it's great stuff. Everyone should go and subscribe over there immediately, and to Ryan as well. Right? Were you always, before you got into the Army, were you interested in things like disinformation, and was that like on your radar?
No, I mean, so back then they would call it like active measures. So disinformation, I guess it was a thing, and Russia actually had, and they still have, dedicated disinformation departments. Like we talked about how nuclear winter was helped spread as Russian disinformation, and it's actually, there was an op plan that they dropped which showed how the U.S. would use nuclear weapons inside Germany like in the 60s and 70s, and the op plan wasn't entirely true, but they manufactured an addendum to our counterinsurgency manual 3031, FM 3031, like addendum B or supplement B, which listed how if we're in South American countries and there's not a revolution, we need to start a revolution to prove to them that we need. It was all a lie. It was all a lie. But I was never really interested in that stuff. You know, I liked my truck, I liked my guns, I liked drinking, and I liked shooting heavy weapons. That was pretty much all. But I also like computer science. And so I guess it wasn't the only reason I got into the disinformation side was that once I started doing some of these YouTube videos, which was mainly anti-tank stuff, I noticed there was a lot of disinformation, and I'm like, I'm gonna correct this. I know the answer to this thing. And over time, I guess it took about a year, I became an expert at spotting disinformation because like that's kind of all there was out there that I was countering. And in my regular job, I worked for a company called Accenture Federal Services, where we did something called C4ISR, Command Control Communications, Computers, Intelligence, Surveillance, Reconnaissance. We found bad guys, and then we give that information to our client, and our client will do stuff with that information. It might be just continuous surveillance. So I know how to find people, and I know how to sift through megabytes and megabytes and megabytes of data just to get to that one nugget that'll let me know where somebody is. I know how to find pattern of life and all that stuff. So then I started down the disinformation path.
There's really a void for that. Because I remember when the whole gun scene kind of kicked off and people were making videos about guns and the history of guns and how to appropriately shoot them and shoulder them. Like before 2009, 2010, not a lot of people were aware of the fact, like, even the idea of don't put your finger on the trigger. Yeah. And all these little tips become more commonplace, and now everyone can kind of pick out, they're holding the gun like an idiot, or they're not taking the recoil right. Because that information has now been kind of like open sourced. Yeah. And I feel like it's sort of similar with what you guys are doing, is you're making this more available to people. They can hopefully pick out that kind of disinformation, or hopefully they can at least have an interest in... So one of the big things I like about YouTube is I'm hoping like maybe we can get more people who are enlisting interested in these things, because I think if more soldiers are interested in geopolitics and they're aware of why they're going to fight or why they might be asked to fight, that to me is a valuable thing.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. And like when it comes to especially social media is it's one of those weird things we created which we don't even know the full potential of yet. But like I didn't know something called you guys are probably familiar with it because I'm not college educated. Dunning-Kruger syndrome. Anyone or the Dunning-Kruger effect? Excuse me, where people think that they know a lot more about something, and I get kind of on the flip side of that where like I know a lot. I'm patriot by trade. That's what I do, and so I was inadvertently thrusted into this position, kind of like you were with the anti-tank weapon systems. Well, Patriot went to Ukraine, and all of a sudden, everybody was a Patriot expert, and it's like, well, that's not how this works. And it's a really weird shift because yes, I'm the funny voice over video guy, like that's cool, that's what I do. But then there's like a deeper level of people that understand that I am actually an absolute expert in my field. Granted, yes, there are people that know a lot more about high mat air defense than I do, and I respect them, and I seek counsel with them quite often when I don't fully understand something. Like, hey, can you help me articulate this, or does this make sense to you? And that's how I ended up kind of dealing with the disinformation thing too.
Let me ask you, what are the biggest misconceptions about the Patriot or air defense in general that maybe you see or people they get wrong, they comment, they're like, you're wrong about this?
Oh, okay. Let me see. The first one is that speed makes it impossible to hit a target. And that's kind of, it works in some aspects, but not in others. So when people are like, well, the SR-71 flew at Mach 3 and people couldn't shoot that down. Why? Well, it's because of the way that the shot is made. You have your air defense system here on the ground, and that thing is moving at Mach 3 at 80,000 feet. So your missile not only has to get up to 80,000 feet, it now has to chase down that target and hit it. Meanwhile, they're like, well, how are you hitting something that is potentially moving at Mach 10? There has been no evidence to prove that anything thrown at the Patriot system is a terminal hypersonic. So when people say it's a hypersonic, yes, during the apogee section of flight outside the atmosphere, it might be moving at those speeds. But as physics and everything start to affect it as it comes back in, they slow down significantly, which is the terminal phase of flight. Thus far, we haven't seen a terminal hypersonic thrown at the Patriot system.
You also have to maneuver.
Exactly.
And that bleeds off speed as well.
Absolutely. And that, not to mention, that's going to cook the outside of that object, and it's just going to be a nightmare. So when people think, well, it's moving this fast, how do you hit it? Okay, if I throw a 90-mile-an-hour fastball directly at you, Chris, you can catch that pretty easily, right? You just put your glove where the glove needs to be, and you can catch it. Now, if I throw that 90-mile-an-hour fastball 10 feet over top of your head, your chances of catching it are slim to none. So that's the idea of air defense. The best way to protect an asset is to be co-located with that asset. So as they're trying to take out that airfield, you're right there, you're the catcher. You're just knocking things down. So that was a big thing when they were like, oh, my missiles are fast, you can't hit them. It's like, I don't have to catch up to your missile. I just have to meet it where it's going to be.
You just have to get in front of it.
Exactly.
You could put a seagull in front of a freaking hypersonic missile.
I want to talk a ton more about air defense. If you want to know about air defense, I do. But
I do want to ask Ryan, like, what are some the common misinformation things that you feel like you see a lot or you hear about? I know you recently covered the
Russian soldier that friggin' double tapped his buddy. Did you see that?
I saw that. I as far as I was concerned, and maybe Ryan can clarify this, isn't mercy killing on the battlefield a violation of the law of land warfare?
Well, if you do it to an enemy soldier, I mean, you might not be if you do it to your buddy, you might not be a war criminal. You might just be a regular criminal. That's kind of how that works. As for disinformation, I think one of the biggest pieces of disinformation that you see out there is that America is weak, or America doesn't know how to fight, or America hasn't won a war. We took down Iraq in 21 days. I think 21, 23 days. We took down Afghanistan in about 6 weeks, roughly. Entire country. It had people fleeing. So if you look at the actual takedown portion, we're great at invading people. We are like the Pablo Picasso, the Monet of invading people. We're great at that. Keeping the peace, that's a little bit harder, right? Especially if we don't have the will to stay in. So I think that's one of the biggest things, is that America doesn't know how to win a war. We're really good at winning wars. It's keeping the peace that's the problem.
Yeah, because I would always hear, people are going to probably say I'm an idiot for saying this, but I don't know. For the last 20 years, people are saying you got beat by a bunch of dudes in sandals, and I'm thinking like we did not get beat. Tactically, on the tactical level, we did not. We handed it to them. Like it's not even a competition.
No.
It's almost messed up what we did. You don't get to go into two countries, flatten them, leave, and then not even be held accountable for it, and then say that we lost.
Well,
like
so
we if we lost, we would be all up. A lot of people would be up facing war crime trials. That's not happening.
The way that I explain it to people is every single engagement that the U.S. military or NATO was involved in Afghanistan, every single one, we walked away the victor. We never retreated. We never backed down. We won every single engagement. And what they did is they ran to Pakistan, recruited a bunch more idiots, and then the next fighting season they came back and hit us again.
So strategically, on like the operational level, okay, I can concede and grant you we lost a lot of wars strategically.
Yeah.
We didn't secure the objective, our goals, our war aims. On a geopolitical level, okay, maybe we definitely lost a couple wars. Iraq at the end of that, we ended up kind of pushing them into the arms of Iran. That's not good. But on a tactical level, for years they were saying that we got our asses handed to us. I think that's ridiculous. We lost, what was it? Not to say one soldier is too much, obviously, and it is awful. But we lost, I think, between the two wars, 8,000?
I don't know about Iraq. One of the points that I like, because I like numbers as well, is in Afghanistan, a little over 2,400 people died. In 20 years of fighting, we lost 600 less people than we did on 9/11, which was 2,996, I think. Almost 3,000 people. So we lost 600 less in fighting for 20 years. And right now, best estimates, I think last UN estimates I checked for April, was Russia has lost 57,000 or something like that.
That is... that's you're losing.
Yeah.
Even if they might get some territory, but they lost, like you said, the confirmed numbers around 60,000 KIA.
Yeah.
Iraq, I think, was around 4,000. Just incomparable numbers, and yeah.
So a lot of that's due to our equipment, due to our training. I mean, you're going to do battle drill 1 alpha. You do it again and again and again and again and again.
A lot of people don't talk about how we got so much better at battlefield trauma that a lot of people that would have died in the Vietnam War you've got a lot of amputees. You got people that survive but they're wounded. So our wounded numbers are much higher. Body armor too. A lot of people took rounds, shrapnel that probably would have killed them but didn't. So yeah, it's very difficult to compare wars to each other like that. It is a little apples and oranges. But yeah, I see that all the time in the comment section. People will say, America, their tanks are getting blown up over there. The Abrams is getting destroyed.
Well, with the development of modern anti-tank guided weapons, and I explained this in one of my videos, tanks, they are still useful on the battlefield. I will never say they are not. But in an urban environment against anti-tank guided missile teams, they are at a heavy disadvantage. Heavy disadvantage.
We were talking about this yesterday, but I almost feel like it's less an issue of is the Abrams better or is the T-72 better? It's more about we have a SHORAD problem where these tanks are getting owned on both sides, where you see one side is making these crazy modifications that whether they make sense or not.
Good old turtle tanks.
Yeah, the turtle tanks creeping along out there. But so to me, it's not that the Abrams sucks or the T-72 sucks. It's that our air defense sucks right now. And there's no good SHORAD option currently, at least on the battlefield, because if SHORAD was doing its job, all these tanks would be able to move up under that umbrella.
They've set up 2, I think there's one at Fort Huachuca and one at Fort Sill, the counter UAS schools, unmanned aerial system or surveillance, really depends on where you read it. And because the Army finally, like when Ukraine popped off, somebody somewhere with a star somewhere on their uniform had a big brain moment. It's like, this is a problem. This is dangerous. So we've thrown out so many contracts for things. You got the Coyote system from Raytheon that just came online, which is a drone hunting drone launcher. You got the FS lids, which is like a jamming system. You got the Ninja, which is like a jamming system. You have the Drone Buster, which is like a shoulder-fired laser jamming system. And then now we've got directed energy maneuver short-range air defense. Those are, I hear, they're functional, but they're not a frontline system because they can't really deal with a whole lot of punishment. I know the guys in 460th who have them.
So I got an opportunity to talk to the Raytheon engineers who developed that system, and they said they have it forward deployed. They couldn't say where, but they said that it had taken out some drones. But then I've read some congressional research documents that say that I think you just mentioned that they have a problem with kind of like maintenance of the systems, that they work great we're here at whatever it is, White Sands, wherever they do the testing, Aberdeen. Works great there, but then when you take it out into an operational environment, something breaks down, and the logistics tail of it is a pain. But I'm excited about when they figure out those directed energy weapons. The people have said, oh, maybe they can spray paint it with something that's a reflective coating. But yeah, these are all options. And then the big thing that I talked to the Marines have a whole MAGTF. It's their air defense, the Marine Corps' air defense, new air defense regiment, MAGTF, I think.
Huh, I've really got to look into that. I haven't heard that at
If you
all.
want to talk to these people, they are looking for people who are interested in creating content and talking about this stuff. I can put you in touch with them.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes,
this guy, Marine officer, Isaac Lamberth. But so he was telling me how I talked to their whole UAV, counter UAV and UAV supply team.
Okay.
And they were saying that they're working on a system that's a 30 millimeter cannon with airburst that has radar. So it automatically detects it, slews to it, and friggin' murks that drone.
So that could be one of two different things. That's probably the kinetic version of the MSHORAD system. So the Marine Corps years ago, there's one at the Air Defense Artillery Training Support Facility. They created a LAV 25 that had the 20 millimeter chain gun on it. The same one, the Vulcan.
EVIDs or whatever.
Yeah, the Vulcan. And it had radar on board, and it had a gunner's cupola and stuff like that, but it never went into full production, probably for money purposes. Well, they very recently came down and started studying that thing. And so on the kinetic MSHORAD, they have Stinger Pod. They're going to put a second one on there. You guys will see a lot of versions that have Hellfires on there. I've heard 17 different reasons why they took the Hellfires off, but the Hellfires are going away.
They are?
Yes, they're not going to be Hellfires. There's going to be twin Stinger Pods on there, kind of similar to an Avenger. But it also...
I like that better, because it's this thing... Have you seen the SHORAD vehicle? It's like a Striker...
Yeah, the bunch of crap on the top.
A bunch of crap.
Yeah.
And when I saw that, I was thinking... This thing is trying to be everything.
Yeah. So they got rid of the Hellfires. Out of everything that I've heard of why they're removing it, the one that makes the most sense is Hellfires are too slow for air targets. They move at Mach 1.2, and a fast mover can cruise through at Mach 2 and you're screwed. But Stingers, Mach 2.2, I think, unclassified. So 8 Stingers is going to do a lot better job than 2 Hellfires and 4 Stingers.
The argument that I heard was that the Hellfires were for giving it anti-tank capabilities. Which seems like...
Possible. I mean, you could do that with a tow as well.
You give those dudes a javelin and...
they're fine. But it also has a 30 mic on there, which is an experimental form. They were thinking about doing a 25mm Bushmaster. I don't know why they went with a 30 instead.
So 30, I was looking into that too.
Okay.
And I was talking to the
Guys at Northrop Grumman at AUSA, which is why we're here right now. But so I was talking to them, and so 25mm is too small for airburst.
Oh, okay.
So 30mm is what's big enough for it to be programmable for it to do the airburst.
I buy that.
makes a
We're
lot of
moving
sense.
toward that anyway. You look at the Ajax system that's getting a 40mm cannon. We've experimented with 50mm cannons.
Yeah, because that's the guy I was talking to was one of the dudes that develops all their autocannon systems, and he was saying, because I guess 50 is an order of magnitude bigger. When you think of 50 versus 40, you think it's a little bit bigger, but apparently it's scale. I don't know math. I'm not a math guy, but apparently it's way more powerful. Yeah.
They had, again, I love the Fort Sill Training Support Facility. It used to be the Air Defense Artillery Museum, but now you have to be escorted through there because everything in there is still functional. Like the missiles in there, you could literally fuel them up, charge the batteries, and they'll fire, which is super cool. I love going around in there, and they have the granddaddy of the GAU-8 in there, and it was an air defense system they put together. They got the drum on the side, which holds 900 rounds, which is embarrassing for a GAU-8, but they're 30mm in this big drum thing. It's 900 and some odd rounds, so they're it was a test platform they could empty it in 4 seconds, and then they took like 2 hours to reload it.
That's what our adversaries are doing. Is they're using Gauleits are the rotary
Cannons, right? Okay, so that's what our adversaries are doing for SHORAD. Is instead of going with the autocannon side, they're going with rotary cannons to try to shoot down drones, because they're going with the basically, I'll just put all the bullets, a wall of it.
Yeah.
Which we're also doing a CWIS version as well. Onto they're just ours is it's kind of sad. They're just slapping a CWIS onto like a pickup truck, essentially, and driving it around right now.
I have not heard of that.
Yes.
I worked on CRAM, which is the counter rocket mortar artillery system.
Look it up. It's kind of a little bit sad. I'm sure it works great, but it just doesn't. It's like Russia and China are working on armored vehicle versions, and then we've got literally a CRAM strapped to the back of a truck.
You know, the Army and the Navy, we switch back and forth. Speaking of like CWIS and CRAM, we swap a lot of systems. So like CWIS is the close-in weapon system, is the Navy version. We made CRAM, which is counter rocket artillery and mortar. Well, it's also the LPWS, land-based phalanx weapon system. And it's the same system, just on the back of a trailer, and we gave it a tan. That's what I tell everybody, because we sent it to the desert. But I'm really surprised we haven't grabbed the rolling airframe missile from the Navy yet. Because they have, they're about the size of Stingers, and they sit on the bottom of a CRAM, and it's just 21 missiles instead of the 20 millimeter cannon.
You get greater range with that. And people have said, like, oh, why don't they send all these CRAMs? Well, the CRAM has a range of maybe a mile, 1.5 kilometers-ish.
I think that's like tracer burnout for those
yeah,
things.
like, it's not that great. It's great if you're defending an airfield. It's great if you're defending a FOB.
It's not last line.
Yeah, it's not so great if you're trying to defend a wide front.
Yeah, it's the something's gone wrong at that point.
And I don't know if you can. I doubt you can fire those things on the move.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of systems that like
it has to know where it is, right, in order to calculate where the rocket's going to be.
Yeah, but that's the beauty of Aegis. Like, this is the thing. I'm a Patriot guy. I love Patriot, but Aegis is a monster. It is a powerhouse. It takes everything that Patriot does and does a lot more of it.
Yeah, I was talking to you last night about Task Force Troy. We have measure, countermeasure. Right now, we are in the age of drones. And sooner or later, we're going to develop enough countermeasures that drones won't matter anymore. And that's probably when the tanks will become more relevant again.
Yeah,
right?
it's a weird part of time to be in. I'll be honest with you, Africa, I kind of stay hands off in Africa because I've learned throughout making my content, and of course, my job isn't necessarily to inform people, but I understand through my comedy that I maybe like get that light bulb to turn on. Like, what is he talking about here? Maybe I should look into it, that's my role in this, and I understand that. And I have a firm rule that I no longer speak about something I don't fully understand, because I've spoke about a law they passed in Germany, and I went into the weeds. I researched the law, like what it actually said, and it was the one about it was like, I don't know, like jailing people or not jailing people based off of like if a parent finds child explicit materials on their child's phone and turning it in, and then they don't go to jail. Like, so I dove into the weeds on that, and apparently I missed the mark vehemently. Like, the Germans and the Polish and everybody else over there was very quick to correct me, which I actually do appreciate. When they're, hey, I want you to understand that this is exactly how we're looking at this right now. And I'm like, oh, that makes sense. I missed the mark. So Africa, there is so much history there that is, this tribe hates this tribe, who hates this government, who hates these people. Like, there's too much for me to unravel. So I'm glad you guys are doing it, because I'm lost in Africa.
No, I pretty much
kind of stopped because there's that whole historical baggage of colonialism, which on just face value, it's like people kind of, they don't want me necessarily to be the face of someone talking about these issues. Not that you can't talk about them, but there is that aspect to it that makes an extra layer of sensitivity on top of all of it. Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I've been so wrong sometimes and I've been wrong in front of millions of people.
Yeah.
And it is a special kind of humiliating to be wrong and to be so wrong in front of so many people. And then I had to kind of figure out in my head, like, how am I going to handle this? And then there's two sort of ways that you can either double down and be like, well, actually I wasn't wrong because, or you can just take the L and really own it. And I've kind of done that. I've tried to just internalize it and say, okay, I fucking got this wrong. And what I've been doing going forward is more, I've learned to be less black and white, less like I'm right, and more saying this is my opinion. I might be wrong. I have
facts I found.
Yeah, here's my level of certainty about it. Like, I could be wrong, but that is something that I think a lot of people have trouble with. What's the right way to deal with being wrong?
I'll tell you the right way to deal with it. ICD 203. The Intelligence Community Directive 203, which is it's a document that shows exactly how you are supposed to approach probability. And there's different formulas for it. That's what I do with almost every video, where I say, look, the probability of this is this, but since we see this raises it to a high probability, or a likely.
Wait, is this something I could look up?
You can do it right now. It's totally on class. ICD, Intelligence Community Directive 203.
I just eat the humble pie, and like for me, like if there's enough people echoing the same thing, I'll see if there's any validity in what they're trying to tell me, and if I research what they're telling me and there is validity in it, I have no problem saying, like, pinning their comment. I've pinned comments that have told me I'm dead wrong before, and I do that on purpose because guess what? Everyone wants to open that comment section and tell me I'm wrong, but I'm hoping they see that first comment that says, hey, I acknowledge that I'm wrong, I misunderstood, and I'll respond to it like I misunderstood the context, I apologize, I will make sure to do better research in the future. And I think that level of humility really makes people appreciate a creator more, at least in my experience, is they're like, hey, this guy's willing to admit when he's wrong, and take the L and move forward.
And then on top of that, people I think respond or resonate with learning a lesson from it and applying that lesson, because it's not enough to just be like, I fucked up and then keep fucking up.
Yeah,
you kind of have to take a level of accountability for it that shows that you've not only said that you did something, that you got something wrong, but how you're going to improve it and then actually apply it.
Yeah.
And if all of those ducks are in a row, then it's good.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of, to me, how I try to handle getting things wrong, is like, okay, what's the lesson that I need to learn from that? And not getting the wrong lesson out of it is tough. When I first started making content, I was doing really satirical, just like really silly stuff with no sort of informational value to it. And there was one comment that some guy wrote, and he was like, wow, this video really fucking sucked. Why don't you tell us something actually useful about the striker? And my first instinct, this was like 5 years ago, was to be like, people in the comments, what do they know? Like, he's just a hater. But I thought about it, and I was like, this guy has a point.
Yeah.
There is some constructive criticism within all of these curses, and like telling me to go fuck myself. There's something in there that's like useful. So I tried to take that out of it.
Yeah.
And then the content changed and it went way up. So that guy helped me
So much.
Absolutely. Well, this is the thing. I think we can all say this. I appreciate constructive criticism as a creator, because you get 1,000 people in there who just, oh, this guy sucks. That doesn't help me. But when they're like, I love the ones that are, hey, I love your content, longtime viewer. I think you missed the mark on this one. Like, that tells me that like it doesn't make me feel like I'm being attacked. It almost makes me feel like what's the word I'm looking for? A resounding sense of like, I'm obligated to give you good information, and this person has disappointed me because I didn't. So I will tell you, at least from my perspective, I love constructive criticism. If you guys come at me in a way that you're trying to make me better, I'm okay with it.
Wait, I feel like I cut you off.
I'm so sorry.
You were saying this I really love too, because this was part of what I was looking at when I started changing the way I was talking about things from, this is definitely what's happening. So like, I have low
like what's it called?
Probability.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's what Intel is. It's always a game of probability, and I might take a look at something and say like, all right, so there is a high likelihood that Daddy El Batty is traveling in this vehicle. And here's all my evidence for the fact that Daddy El Batty is in this vehicle. He always drives his driver always uses a white Toyota Land Cruiser with a dent in the left rear quarter panel. Daddy El Batty, we have pattern of life. Daddy El Batty always leaves to go to his meetings at 9:30 every day. Daddy El Batty always takes this route. We see Daddy El Batty leaving, or a Land Cruiser that fits the description of his thing with a dent in the left rear quarter panel is leaving at this time. It's on his route. There is a high likelihood this is Daddy El Batty. The NCV, the non-combatant casualty cutoff, is 5. Usually it's 0, but let's say it's 5. There's 2 innocent people in the car. What do you want to do?
Right, and that takes out a lot of that black and white thinking of like, yeah, it's definitely this or it's definitely that, because the intelligence community doesn't even work that way. And that's that was the humbling thing to me, was I was like, wait a second, there's dudes like General Mark Milley, who he is read in, Chairman, he is read in on everything, and even he gets things wrong. Like, he's direct information from the CIA, he reads all the reports, and even he thought, for instance, that Ukraine was going to get folded in 3 days.
Yeah.
So if they're getting things wrong, then like, what hope? I need to be a little bit more like, hey, this could be this way or it could be that way.
You have multiple people doing multiple assessments. You have, DIA might be doing assessments, CIA might be doing an assessment. The Army has their own. DIA is part of that, but the Army might have their own at the division, brigade level. They're doing their own assessments. When the Ukraine thing kicked off, I was like, I knew they had the Javelin, and I was thinking to myself, people were saying, oh, it's going to be 3 days. No, it's not, dude, because they're going to smack right into freaking these weapon systems you mentioned something you mentioned earlier, that the T-72 sucks or the Abrams sucks, or, it's usually the better crew is the winner, right? And one advantage that the T-72 or any T-series tank really have over something like the Abrams is that it's smaller. It's lower profile.
Yep.
And back in the 70s, back in the 80s, that was a really good thing because you could kind of hide behind a hill. The Abrams is like 2/3 bigger than the T-72. If you ever see them next to each other, it's crazy. And, that was great back when it was gun on gun. Well, now we have microchips that don't care how small you are. You just put those track gates on the vehicle and say, okay, this one, and that missile's going to hit that target. It doesn't care how small you are. So today the vehicle isn't so good, but I remember thinking to myself, like, Jesus Christ, these kids, they are going to burn.
As a tanker, it must have been wild to see.
I mean, so, yeah, I was a tanker for the first 3 years of my career, and I was excited because I wanted to see tank-on-tank battle. No one in the U.S. had experienced a tank-on-tank battle with an Abrams since, like, 73 Easting. Like, that was, Desert Storm. That was way back when. So I was really excited to see it, and what I feared is what came about, is that tanks are no longer the rolling guard that they used to be. They're great for supporting infantry maneuvers, but in urban environments, open terrain, things that have anti-tank guided weapons, it ultimately comes down to who sees who first and who gets that first shot. Because, a Sabo don't care. A Sabo will go through an Abrams, it'll go through a Challenger, it'll go through a T-72, T-80, T-90, you name it. So, as excited as I was also very nervous. And of course, at least what I've been seeing on my, what I see in the information coming out of this war is when a Russian piece of equipment gets destroyed, it's like, oh, that's fine. We have 700,000 more. When an American or a British piece of equipment or a German piece of equipment gets destroyed, it's like, oh, you said it was invincible. It's like, nobody said it was invincible. Like, things break. There was
we lost a couple
we did.
To IEDs, but we lost a couple. And it's not invincible. It just tends. To me, I say that the M1 tends to be a superior vehicle because of its sensor package. But then the vehicles we sent to Ukraine are essentially from
70s, 80s.
Yeah, they're essentially from the Gulf War.
Yeah.
The armor package and the armor package was reduced. And so the sensor package doesn't have the CITV on it. The
Commander's integrated thermal viewer,
thermal viewer. There's other battlefield management things that aren't on that vehicle, which really wouldn't matter because Ukraine doesn't really have the battlefield management tech anyway. FBCV2. It's called something else.
BFT or
BFT, FBCV2.
All the things that kind of make it what it is, it sort of didn't have. And then on top of all of it, these things are kind of designed within a doctrine that is land, air, sea battle. So without that...
Yeah, and the landmine doesn't care. Mm-hmm. You know, the vehicle that was destroyed in Ukraine and brought over to Red Square, where they said, look, they're not so tough. Well, hit a mine. I got news for you, man. Mines don't care.
Yeah, mines hurt regardless. I will say that, like, the American and the German, the ones that have blowout panels, have increased survivability. You know, they don't send their turrets into low orbit like autoloaders do. So that is a benefit of the American systems. And I think, from what I understand, again, this is an unconfirmed report, is that the crew that hit that landmine survived. So, yeah, take the tank. That's fine. That's a piece of equipment. The people who are using it, who are capable and competent, that's worth way more than that tank is.
What's going to be, you can probably do a story on this. This would be up your alley, because once the war in Ukraine is over, they're going to have to demine that country.
That's going to be not a great detail to be on.
It's going to take 20, 30 years, and I guarantee it's going to be like the Psalm or something, where you got some dude plowing his field, and boom, his tractor gets blown up because there was something in there from wherever.
I have a million more questions for you guys, but we'll save them for the next time that we meet up, and we'll do this again, because there's a lot more stuff I want to get into with, like, our adversaries with North Korea, Iran, and China are all kind of coalescing against us, but we'll save it for next time. I really, Ethan, Ryan, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
You can find me at habituallinecrosser.com. That has all my socials, my merchandise, shirts, hats, all that jazz.
You can find me on YouTube, Ryan Mcbeth Programming, because I used to be a programming channel. I still do a little bit of that programming stuff. Or you can go to ryanmcbeth.substack.com to see all the footage that I cannot show on YouTube.